In the year 2006, a college student named Heather Cowan was 21 years old. Heather was living in a rental house with her boyfriend, Ryan Waller, who was 18 years old, in Arizona, America. Heather's personality was a very kind person, and she loved to help children in need and defend them and their rights, and also provide assistance to her friends and to all people. In general, she loved to help and defend oppressed people, and for this reason Heather was studying law so that she could become a lawyer and defend people more formally. Heather Cowan is Ryan Waller's girlfriend. On December 25, 2006, Heather and Ryan were planning to go visit Ryan's father so that they could celebrate Christmas together. Ryan's father was ready for the visit and prepared dinner for his son and his girlfriend and sat waiting. He waited a long time and did not come. He tried to communicate with them and call them, but there was no answer from anyone, neither from Heather nor from Ryan. The father felt that something was wrong because it was not his son's habit to do this, especially since they were on a date, so the situation was definitely not normal. Don Ryan's father, instead of going to their house and checking on them, called the police and asked them to go do a well check, meaning he asked the police to go to his son's house and check on him. The police responded to the request and went to the address that Ryan's father had given them and began knocking on the door. They knocked on the door the first time and no one opened it. They tried to take a look from the window to see if anyone was inside or not. It was not very clear because the lights were half off. They knocked again and this time they are knocking. They started talking loudly so that no one inside could hear. They started saying, "We, the police, are coming to do a well check to check on you," and so on. After they had finished talking, the door opened. The person who opened the door was Ryan. Ryan had very pomegranate eyes and was almost black in color, and he had a wound on his nose. When he opened the door to the police, he looked as if he was afraid or confused, because he was not talking or doing anything, he was just standing there. He doesn't talk or ask or anything. Also, when the door opened, the police saw a girl who was lying on the couch. The girl was most likely Heather. Of course, the police knew because Ryan's father had told them the details. The police started asking her, "Why do you have such an eye? What's going on with you?" But Ryan didn't know how to answer. He told them, "My eyes don't look like my eyes." They asked him about the girl inside. They said, "Who is the girl? Is she Heather?" He also told them, "I don't know if she's just sleeping." The police didn't take much and give with him. In words, they told him, "Your father called us and told us to check on you, and we must go in and wake up the girl and make sure that she is okay. Then we will go." When he heard these words, Ryan did not do anything or react, but he just left in front of the door and let the police enter. The police entered the room and discovered that Heather was not sleeping. Heather was dead as a result of a bullet in her head, and the police assessed the condition of her body and said that she had been dead at least 2 or 3 days ago. Immediately, the police arrested Ryan because there was no one else in the house and he was the only suspect, and he was the only person sitting with Heather's body. When they arrested him, he did not try to talk or justify what happened. He was just saying, I don't know what happened in the house, I don't know anything." December 26, 2006 at 5 a.m. Ryan entered the investigation room. The duration of the interrogation was approximately an hour, and the entire hour was recorded. During that hour, things happened that made me shocked by the whole story. The room that Ryan entered was a small room with a table and a chair. Ryan entered it and entered after the investigator left an empty piece of paper on the table and left. Of course, during this period, Ryan was not clothed and they were not tied with his hateful hands in the room and they left. Ryan entered and sat on the chair and his face was facing the door. Okay, where is the strange thing about the matter? What is strange about the matter is that Ryan saw a handcuff tied to the table, meaning one end of it was on the table and the other end was open, and the police did not handcuff him, nor did they ask him to make a handcuff, nor did they talk to him or anything, but when he saw the handcuff, he took it, put it in his hand, and locked it. After he saw the clutch, he remained sitting for 5 minutes without moving. Then he suddenly decided to get up and leave the room as if he was standing, but when he got up, he was shocked that he had a clutch in his hand. The clutch he had put in his hand seemed to have forgotten about it. After 5 minutes, when he was unable to walk because of the clutch, he went back to sitting on the chair. Just take the empty paper. When it was 5:17 p.m., the investigator entered the room and told Ryan that we must photograph your legs. Ryan was very surprised, but he raised his legs on the table, and then another person entered and actually started filming. During this period, he started asking the investigator if I was allowed to go to the house. Of course, the investigator was telling him, "No, you are not allowed to go." See also, the police were an hour late, and the result was unfortunate. After another 10 minutes, after the cameraman finished filming, the investigator came and brought his chair and put it next to Rain and sat down, and started asking him simple questions like your name, date of birth, and so on, and Rain actually answered these questions correctly. Then the investigator asked him, "Do you know why we are detaining you or are we investigating you?" Ryan said, "No, I don't know." Here the investigator started telling Ryan that I will inform you of your rights like they do on television programs, and he started asking him, "Are you watching one of these programs that are an investigation into cases? When the police arrest an accused, they say that you have no right to say anything to get a lawyer and so on." Ryan's answer was no. I did not see programs like this before, and then suddenly he changed his words and said, "Yes, yes. I saw." The investigator began to have doubts or became almost certain that Ryan was lying, because he changed his words every once in a while and always gave the answer quickly, thinking, clarifying a little and then changing his words. There was something wrong with his actions, but he was trying to continue talking to him in the hope that he would get useful information from him, so he told him the rights and then he started asking him what class you took. I don't know how, you don't know what grade you took. Just think for a while, and then a little while later, you reach the 8th grade. Frankly, the investigator was having difficulty believing Ryan because he changed his words every now and then and it was clear that he was lying. Is it possible that someone knows what grade he is in? But he kept asking him other questions based on his answers, and the first question after the question in which he asked him which grade you had reached, he asked him about a certificate they call the GED. According to what I understood, it is a certificate equivalent to a high school diploma that people who have not reached the secondary stage take, so they take a test in 5 subjects and on the basis of this test, they take the GED, which is equivalent to a high school diploma in America and Canada. The important thing is that the investigator continued with the questions and started asking him about Heather. Before he mentioned her name directly, he asked him, "Do you have a girlfriend?" He said, "No." Then he asked him, "Do you know a girl named Heather?" He said, "I know her," and he started describing her as her, but the description he described did not match her true characteristics at all. He started saying that she was 16 or 17, and she was actually 21, and he started saying that her second name or nickname was K-Man. Of course, her real nickname was not K-Man, her nickname was Quan. The investigator is 1,000,000% sure that Ryan is lying because he knows that he is in a relationship with Heather, knows her name, and knows all the details because when his father called the police, he told them the details. When Ryan came and said different things, he became certain that Ryan was lying. Although he knew this thing or doubted, let us say, he has not yet confronted Ryan with the truth. He did not say, "You are a liar and I know the details." No, he continued with the questions and started asking him about his eye. "Why is your eye a pomegranate and black in color, as usual?" The first thing he said is that I don't know, but why? He insisted on it again and he began to speak other than words. As you heard, Ryan said that Heather was the one who hit him in the eye, and through this sentence the investigator began to think that Ryan was the one who killed Heather, and Heather was trying to defend herself, so she hit him in the eye as an act of self-defense. Of course, is this true? Until now, I don't know if it's real or not. During this period, the investigator started to get a little nervous and began to ask him clearly, as if he had finished and was no longer interested. He started telling him that there is a dead girl in the room. You must give me information. What is strange about the matter is that for the first time since the beginning of the investigation until now, Ryan's reaction was real because he was really shocked when he found out that the girl was dead because according to what he said, he thought she was asleep when the investigator told him that she was dead, and he was shocked. Suddenly, after Ryan was in shock and did not know what had happened to Heather, he started telling a different story to the investigator. He started telling him that there were two people who came to the house. These two people were Richard and his father. They had weapons and they were the ones who beat us. Detective Dahlen lost his nerve, because the story had become very complicated and confusing, and every now and then, Ryan invents new words and a new story, so he does not know whether to believe him or not, and even if he wants to believe him, he does not know which story to believe. He believes that he really does not know anything about what happened, and he does not believe that there are two people. To whom did Richard and his father enter and kill them? The investigator sat almost resigned at the end, not knowing how to act with Ryan, so he sat and began to look at him and not say anything. When he was sitting looking at him, he noticed that there was something strange about his face. He approached me and let me see, and the investigator saw his face and then left the room. What the investigator was seeing was 4 holes in Ryan's face. The holes were the possibility of a pistol bullet. Now prepare to hear the shocking truth. Of course, after the investigator left the room, he called an ambulance because he discovered that they had made a big mistake that completely destroyed Ryan's life. Because the real story was the last story Ryan told, which was that Richard and his father were the ones who killed Heather, but how did they kill her, and who is Richard? Richard is Ryan's friend. He lived with him and Heather in the same house. But a month before the incident, there was a problem between Ryan and Richard. The reason was that Ryan tried to harass Heather, so it became a big problem between Ryan and Ryan kicked Richard out of the house. On December 23, 2006, Richard and his father came to take revenge on them, and they had a gun. The first time they came to the house, Ryan saw him through the glass door in the room and tried to prevent him from entering, but Richard had a gun and he hit Ryan with 2 bullets in his face. The first bullet hit. The direction was somewhat inclined, because it entered through his nose, came out of his eye, and went to his brain, and in its way, it caused fractures in the skull, and there were 6 pieces of broken bones lodged in his brain, causing him internal bleeding. The second bullet also fractured his skull, but it did not lodge in his body. It came out from the other side. After the blows, Ryan fell to the ground and lost consciousness. They thought he was dead, so they entered the house and Richard hit Heather with a single bullet in the head, and the bullet killed her immediately. After they killed them, they stole things from the house and fled. After a few hours of the incident, he was healthy, but he did not know what was happening or what had happened, because in short, he had brain scratching and started hallucinating, so he really did not know what was happening. And when he woke up and saw Heather lying on the sofa, he thought she was asleep, so he left her and went to sleep as well. And I woke up the next day and the same thing happened. Heather still hadn't woken up, or her thinking was that he was asleep and didn't know how to do anything. His brain was literally ruined. And because he was suffering from internal bleeding, every second that passed was causing him damage that was impossible to repair. At this time, the police came to the house and saw Ryan, and the events that I told you about at the beginning took place, and what affected his condition the most was that all this time, Ryan was without treatment and without medical care, and this the thing that made his condition get worse was that not only was he not being taken care of, but they were interrogating him and forcing him to use his brain and think while he was in the same situation. Of course, the police did this thing because they were thinking that he was the criminal, and it never occurred to them that there would be another story. Of course, the police caught Richard and his father and sentenced them to life imprisonment, but the problem is that Ryan was careless. After the investigator noticed the location of the bullets, he called an ambulance, and unfortunately they took him away until he was still alive. They had to remove the damaged part of his brain and also the injured eye. Some sources say that they removed the 2 eyes as well, but in both cases the situation is very bad. I mean, Rain no longer saw, and he no longer knew how to think properly or act on his own. After the operation, he went back to live with his family, and they became terrified of him. Nearly 10 years after the injury, Rain died due to a seizure, or simply a problem that occurred in his body due to the injury he suffered, and here we have reached the end of an unforgettable story. Like and subscribe.